heard what I said in my opening statement about my involvement with the False Claims Act. You don't need to give a long answer to this question just to make me feel good, but please tell me what role, if any, the National Fraud Enforcement Division will play in enforcing the False Claims Act.
Thank you, Senator, and it was a pleasure to meet with you yesterday. Senator and Chairman, the False Claims Act is a pivotal tool in the toolbox of the Department of Justice to ensure that our federal programs are free of fraud, waste, and abuse. As you mentioned, this last year was a record number for recovery under the False Claims Act. I look forward to working with my criminal division partners, with my civil division partners, to ensure that the False Claims Act is stronger and sturdier, and that our work in that regard is better than ever before going forward.
How would you coordinate with other components of the Justice Department to avoid duplicative investigations and conflicting litigation positions?
Chairman, that's a great question, because at step one of any effort within the Department of Justice, we must ensure that the work that we do is as efficient as possible. If one agent or one attorney in one office is working on the same case that another agent or an attorney is working on in a different office, that's not a fruitful exercise for the Department of Justice. What I have done as a career prosecutor is, from the get-go, ensure that all of our effort is as efficient as possible by building out processes and procedures that enable us to do the maximum amount of work because of those processes and procedures that we've built. What I will do is I will work very closely with all of the partners within the Department of Justice who work in the fraud space, including the False Claims Act, and including other fraud efforts, to ensure that there is no duplication of effort and that the National Fraud Enforcement Division is truly complementary to all of the other work that historically has gone on.
I'm very concerned about fraud and scam targeting our senior citizens. I'm going to quote the AARP estimating that individuals age 60 and older lose at least $28 billion annually as victims of fraud. So what measures would you take through the National Fraud Enforcement Division to protect elderly from fraud?
Chairman, I am highly sympathetic and compassionate to the elderly who are the victims of this sort of fraud. And I will be working closely with my other partners within the Department of Justice to ensure that we use all the tools available to us to bring relief to these victims. And it's not just the grandmothers and the grandfathers, it's also their family members who bear the weight of these scams and the fraud that's perpetrated against them. My grandmother, one of them turns 89 years old in 2 days, and she has seen these sorts of efforts towards her, and it's a major issue that the Department of Justice is focused on, and we will be using all available tools to ensure that we combat that problem. And I will finish by saying that in my work, it has been a distinct pleasure to work with victims, including the elderly, including one 99-year-old victim of fraud that I worked and had the pleasure of listening to, of hearing her story, of believing her story, and then fighting for justice for her, that 99-year-old, in the state of Hawaii.
Fraud and investigation enforcement has historically been handled by the Justice's civil and criminal divisions. Because of that, some people have speculated that this new division that you're going ahead is redundant or unnecessary. So why is the reorganization of the Department of Justice important to combat fraud nationally, and how will the American people benefit from this new structure? That'll be my last question.
Thank you, Chairman. The issue of fraud, waste, and abuse in the country is so vast. An independent study from GAO in April 2024 estimated between $230 billion annually up to about $520 billion annually in fraud against taxpayer-funded programs. The problem is massive. And so President Trump and the Attorney General were right to identify this as a place where we needed to put significant more focus. Even with historic years last year with our civil division and our criminal division, there is still a vast divide of work that we need to do to ensure that our taxpayer-funded programs are free of fraud.
Thank you, Senator Durbin.
Thank you very much, Mr.